本日は CBI デジタルのコーファウンダー COO であるマイク・リーさんをお迎えし、DX の経験から得た知識をご紹介してもらいます。CBI デジタルは2007年に設立されて以来、北米アジアで急成長している会社でして、ビームサントリー、ルイ・ヴィトンですね、ファーストシチズンバンクなどにデジタル推進を導入してきたパフォーマンスマーケティングとプラットフォームの開発会社であります。リーさんは北米及びアジア太平洋地域の企業のオンラインプレゼンスを確立し、トラフィックと収益を拡大できるように支援、サポートしています。さまざまな企業ブランドのほか、新興企業などの人気のオムニチャンネルのファッションやアパレルブランドなんかもサポートをしています。さらに、リーさんは4年間 JCCI の会員でいらっしゃいまして、そしてフォーブス、起業家、そしてメディアポストなど人気のある、プレス、出版社にいろいろ寄稿をされています。本ウェビナーの QA セッションについてはレクチャーの後に予定してますが、質問はプレゼンテーションの最中でも随時受け付けておりますので、ご質問のある方は Q&A ボタンですね。Q&A ボタン下にありますね。押していただき、差し支えなければ英語で質問をタイプしてご記入ください。時間に限りがありますので、できるだけご紹介をしたいと思います。なお本日は AI 翻訳のワードリーによる日本語字幕のサービスもご用意しています。画面下にある CC、クローズドキャプションのボタンで日本語訳のサブタイトルが出てまいりますので、ぜひどうぞ必要に応じてご利用ください。Now I will switch over to English. So we would like to begin the lecture. Mr. Lee, whenever you are ready, please start the presentation.
Thank you, Maeda-san, for the introduction. Let me share my screen so we can start.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It is my great honor to be here with you today. I'm Mike Lee, the co-founder and COO of CBI Digital. And we help clients implement digital transformation projects via platform development, AI and machine learning, and digital marketing. So I'd like to start today's talk by sharing a personal note. One of my most favorite books of all time is The Book of Five Rings from the legendary swordsman in Japan, Miyamoto Musashi. And his philosophy of achieving excellence and mastery has been a great inspiration for me for many years on how I live and run business. And I fell in love with Japanese culture, and I'm proud of being a JCCI member for over 4 years and have the honor serving clients like Beam Suntory or Funai Corporations. And in 14 years in business, we also work with clients like VMH, First Citizen Bank, and many B2B and e-commerce companies. We have contributed to many digital transformation success and also pick up a lot of takeaways on things that we should have done differently. And I hope to share with you some of that in today's session. And nowadays, business leaders no longer ask the question, should we do digital transformation or not? It is no longer a choice, it is a must do. As markets and user behaviors have changed so fast, and we can no longer do business the way we are doing for the last 10 or 20 years. However, the real startling fact, the real scary fact is that according to Harvard Business Reviews, 70% of all the digital transformation initiatives failed to reach the goal. And of the $1.3 trillion spent on digital transformation a year, about $900 billion went to waste. So why? Why more than 2/3 of digital transformation projects fail to reach the goal, and why some of those succeed? So that will be the focus of our talk today. I will share with you our lesson learned on the experience doing many digital transformation projects, big and small, from helping B2B companies going online and launch e-commerce business to building out medical platforms for hospitals. And hopefully some of those lessons will be helpful with you on your digital transformation journey. And on a side note, digital transformation is a very broad area. So as a technology and digital company, I will focus on the topics of building and deploying technology projects and growing the online revenue with digital marketing. We will not cover some other topics on digital transformations, but please feel free to bring those topics up in our Q&A sessions. So let's start with the technology side. So whenever I review technology projects, I usually focus on the four main areas: the goals, the core technologies, the resource and timeline, and the risk, by asking for simple questions. Is the goal meaningful and achievable? Is the core technology the right fit? Can the plan survive uncertainty and inevitable changes? And what are the biggest risks that could stop us from succeeding, and what we can do about that? Let's start with the goal setting. So one of the most common problems I'm seeing in business goal setting is we are aiming for too high too soon. Now, it sounds simple, but actually, even very high profile, experienced business leaders can fall into this trap. So I share with you a story. A large client of mine, they run a chain of fireplace stores across East Coast, want to expand to e-commerce. And they set out a very audacious goal of building out a Wayfair for fireplace. And they actually went to Wayfair website and take the very best features of Wayfair to put into the scope. And they also learn the key features of the two largest competitors in the space. So our project scope get really big right from the beginning. We finally put it off and built and launched the platform. However, the whole process took over a year and a significant investment to complete, and way above the plan. So setting high goals actually means taking high risk. If we all remember the Kiwi, it is the short form video streaming platform that is founded by the ex-CEO of eBay and HP, and raised $1.8 billion and have to shut down after 3 months. So you see that this problem actually can happen to anyone. A better approach would have been, when we face a trade-off situation that we have to choose between the timeline and the feature, instead of pushing the timeline back, we should have been actually compromise the feature instead by taking off all the non-core features and allocate the resource to finish all the most important features on time. By that approach, we would have launched the platform on schedule with a lot fewer features, but all the critical ones. We still can reach the customers, get the early feedback, even generate early revenue. And from that feedback, we can refine the platform and release a better version in the future. So another note that I want to share on the goal setting is that we should be very clear about why we want to leverage digital transformation and where the value will be created. We work with a very large medical group called Hoàn Mỹ Medical Corporation, who is the largest private hospital network in Vietnam with 21 hospitals and clinics and 4 million patient visits a year. Now, the challenge that Hoàn Mỹ faced was their business rely heavily on the patient foot traffic to the hospitals. And once the patient leaves the hospital, they have no way to re-engage with the patient to offer additional value. So from there, when we want to incubate an internal digital startup called Zhang, which is a patient engagement platform that engage with the patient across the patient journey, and also enhance the patient experience and create additional revenue streams. So we set out to develop that digital platform for OneMe. It actually have appointment booking, telehealth, patient profile, e-commerce, CMS feature, plus 2 apps, the patient's mobile apps and the doctor mobile apps. And when we finish and launch the platform, we see the platform actually unlock an enormous value for OneMe. The hospital today can expand the serving area from 5 to 10 kilometer radius around the hospital to over 80 kilometers radius across hospital. So we see the patient from very far away, they engage with the digital platform and they come to the hospital for treatment. And the hospital today, they can reach out to the patient anytime via the patient mobile app, whether for engaging and exchange information, send out notification, or send out the new offerings, and generate significant revenue streams via selling health package to the patient with the platforms. So the key takeaway on the goal setting is that the obstacle could be we aim too high too soon. As the leaders, we are very ambitious. And the value creation can be vague and hard to be quantified. And the suggestion is that we should adopt Silicon Valley's mindset about building out the MVPs, the minimum viable products, get early feedbacks, and release a better version. And we can be very clear about which problem needs to be solved and where the value won't be created. The second main area I'd like to share is about selecting the core technology. So actually, the core technology is the soul of each digital transformation project, whether we solve a real problem or we unlock value for business. The challenge is that there are many technology solutions to choose from, which almost a lot of them seem to solve the similar problems. However, each have pros and cons. So how can we make the wise choice or pick up the right solution for us? So a typical example of that is when we select the core technology for telehealth functionality of Zhang medical platform I just talked about, and we consider a lot of technical solutions, either Twilio, WebEx, Doximity, Beowulf for the telehealth, which is a technology that allow the patient and the doctors can have a conference call with each other and do the online examination. So to do that, we brainstorm and create a very detailed list of all the criteria, business or technical, that the solution need to meet in order to satisfy the business case. The criteria including it have to have the video calls, the chat, the file sharing, and the call recording feature. It also need to have a very solid API interface for easy integration and simplified coding, so our Zhang platform can easily integrate with the telehealth solution. And it need to be affordable at scale. So when Zhang acquired millions of patients, the cost still manageable. So the interesting part is that when we establish very clear criteria to select, the best solution tend to show itself. So when we look deeper, the Doximity is a great solution, but it do not have the call recording capability. Similarly, Beowulf, they use peer-to-peer video technology. They also cannot do call recording. Twilio is very advanced technology. They are recently developed, so they lack the solid API interface. And if we leverage Twilio, our team will need to put a lot of extra coding effort in order to integrate that with the system. So we end up using web-based video technology, which is very established technology that is owned and maintained by Cisco. And WebEx provide all the features we're looking for. It have the video call, the chat, the file sharing, the call recording. It is very robust to integrate, and it is affordable. And by leveraging WebEx technology, we are able to implement the telehealth feature for Zangi in relatively short period. So another story I want to share is about selecting e-commerce solution. So a client of mine is Ms. Moose, which is a premium fashion brand. They own 3 footwear brands, multiple stores in the East Coast, and they have a wholesale business selling to Nordstrom, Walmart, and DSW. And Ms. Moose faced a challenge that many of you may relate to. On their stores, they see that the customer foot traffic keep going down, while the store rent keep going up, especially in New York City, for example. So it is harder and harder to maintain cash flow positive for store. The wholesale business is also downsizing because as the retailers face more pressure on sales, they become more demanding and selective when taking products in. So Ms. Moose realized that e-commerce is the only growing component with like in their business assets. So they double down on e-commerce. However, at the time, they're running 3 different e-commerce sites separately, and managing 3 separate e-commerce sites is an operation nightmare. You have to synchronize the inventory data, the sales data across 3 different online stores and multiple offline stores and multiple warehouse. And it creates so many operation issues. So Ms. Moose and us, we look at all the e-commerce solution in the marketplace. We look at Shopify, we look at Magento Commerce, we look at BigCommerce, we look at Demandware from Salesforce. And then we realize that with Shopify, it is very affordable. However, we still need to do 3 separate sites because Shopify doesn't support multi-site architecture. BigCommerce is also good, but it doesn't give us the flexibility and the ability to customize the features as deep as Ms. Moo's business model required. And Demandware are very expensive. So we end up going with Magento Commerce, which have a very powerful multi-site architecture. And Magento allow us to build 3 front-end e-commerce websites that connect seamlessly with a single backend. So the operation become really smooth. And once we launch the Ms. Moo's Magento Commerce platform, we see enormous gain for the business. First, we are able to reduce the maintenance cost more than half because now we only need to operate 1 large platform instead of 3 different websites. And the second, because Magento have great mobile experience and much faster loading times, we see the conversion rate on the site double. So Ms. Mood were able to double their online sales within just a few months of launching the new platform. And here is how Ms. Mood unlock a great value when choosing the right core technology. You can see that the revenue orders going up for both brands as they have Ms. Mood and AS98. We can see that the load time increase is getting much better, and we see the mobile experience is much better. So the key takeaway on choosing the core technology, the obstacle are there are many technology solutions that seem to solve the same problem, but each has a pros and cons, and picking the wrong ones can be costly. And the suggestion is that we should create a list of very thorough criteria, business or technical, that need to be met in order to satisfy our business case. And we should pick the solution that is not fancy, but best fit, solve the real problem, and unlock the most value. The third area I look at for digital transformation technology project is about the resource, the timeline, and the plan. And the real reason that many companies could not finish the technology project is not because they do not have a plan in place. They do have a plan. However, the plan at the timeline could not survive, and if they are compromised due to the day-to-day new challenge that keep showing up. So how can we maintain the timeline and plan amid the uncertainty and inevitable changes? So here I tell you another story about the fabulous client we shared earlier. And as I said earlier, we set a very ambitious goal. And this project went way longer than we planned. And the goal is high, and we know that the technology complexity is high. But the real mistake that we made at the time was actually we allowed the timeline to be pushed back later multiple times because of those issues. There is actually, and so even though that in the end we complete the project, but it took a lot more time. And from the planning perspective, it was not a success. And the better approach would have been that when we face that compromise, the situation, we should maintain the timeline at all costs. And instead, we should simplify the features and taking out the non-core features. So by doing that, we actually can launch the plan, launch the platform on schedule. So by launching the platform on schedule, we can roll it out, get the very early feedback, adopting to the MVP mindset I talked about earlier, and get the feedback early and release the next version that worked really well. Now, we actually deploy this lesson learned and use this mindset when we develop the Zhang platform, the medical platform. And by rigorously simplify the features and maintain the timeline at all costs, we actually can launch the entire medical platform within only 5 months with 5 major modules. We do the online scheduling and booking system, the e-commerce, the patient profile, the telehealth, and all the CMS in the back end, all of that within 5 months. And we go on enrolling the platform for 21 hospitals, gathering tons of platform feedback from the patient and the hospital staff. And we release the next version of the platform 3 months later with all the features included, and everybody was very happy. So the lesson learned for us on managing the timeline is that, and our approach here is kind of a little unorthodox, that when we get to the compromise situation due to unexpected difficulties, we would prioritize maintaining the timeline and really focus on only the core features and remove the non-core instead of pushing the timeline to the later stage. And obviously, we want to buffer the resource for the unexpected change and difficulties. But with that approach, we are able to get to the tangible outcome a lot sooner, drive the revenue earlier, and that will be a great proof of concept. So there is another area about planning that I want to touch briefly on, is as the misalignment between the estimates and the reality. So there are times the estimate become really important, and when we actually go on execution, we see it very different. And our approach for that would be, reality is that the leadership can set the vision and goals, but we should listen very carefully about the feedbacks from the teams on the field, because they tend to know better what is possible and what is not. And by combining all the ideas from the teams on the field, plus the business objective from the leadership, we can create the plan that have a higher chance to be successful and closer to the reality. The last area of launching technology projects on time is that how we manage the key risk. And the most powerful mindset to launch a technology project on time is that once we have a plan in place, we should be really aggressively identify the biggest risk and eliminate those right from the moment they arise. So after doing many technical projects, I see a few risks that keep showing up across multiple projects. And I will share with you some of that today. We have a client, Master Cutlery. They operate two B2B business, and they want to go online, and they also want to launch a B2C e-commerce business selling knives products. And obviously by now, you know that we will use Magento Commerce for their multi-site architecture, so we can launch one platform for all the three business. Master Cutlery use an ERP system called Infor, is a Infor Enterprise Resource Planning, and there is no native connection between Magento and ERP and Infor ERP. So the third-party integration, we have to use a partner, an integration partner, to build out that connector. And the challenge is that the integration partner we work with, they could not deliver on the timeline they commit to. It actually took them 3 times longer than the time they planned to build out the connectors. However, because from day one, we already identified that the third-party integration is the biggest risk of the project. It can be out of our control. So we let the partner start working out from that task very early on. So even that it go 3 times longer than planned, it actually still end up finishing before the other components completed, and it did not slow us down or affect the launch plan. Another risk that we see beside the third-party integration is that, some of the showstopper risk can be hardly to notice. It can be easily overlooked. So go back to the 5 years project I shared earlier. We did many things wrong on that project, but there is one thing we did right, is that from day one, we know the biggest risk of that project is actually not the technical complexity, but it is the data entry and how to build out the product database of 30,000 5-place SKUs. And we have to pull the data from thousands of PDF and Excel files in various formats and templates. We have to put all of that information into a master template and then import in that into Magento Commerce database. And in that whole process, if somebody somewhere miss a comma in a single cell of a big file, it may lead to a coding error on the e-commerce side that could take very long time to debug. So by identifying that as the biggest risk, client and us, we form a dedicated task force just to do that job right from day one. And as predicted, that team took about 8 months just to do the data entry job. And they overcome countless of challenges to put it off and get the product data ready. Because there is no such product database available public. We have to build it from scratch. And the good things about that, even it takes 8 months to do that, it's still finished before the other processes. So it did not drag us down on moving forward with the 5 places. So we anticipate that risk effectively. Another story about managing risk is that we may choose a technology that's good with our need today, but may not be good enough for our needs in the future. So the thinking future backward is very important. When we build out Zen e-medical platform, we identify 2 risks. The first risk is a telehealth technology I shared earlier, and the second risk is that one e-medical platform, they keep acquiring new hospitals, and they keep building new hospitals. And the new hospital they acquired or built, they have completely different workflow than the existing hospital in the group. So if we build out a standard workflows for all the hospital, it is guaranteed to fail at deployment stage. When we foresee that from the beginning, we see the future, we design a microservice architecture that allow us to deploy each hospital portal in a private cloud, which allow us to customize the workflow for each hospital that best fit with their needs. So when we launch the platform for all the hospitals, the hospital staff welcome our platform for the ease of use, and we are ready for any future expansion. And the last piece of the key risk is that the legacy systems could be a landmine. So many times we need to connect with the existing platform, the legacy system that we are using for many years. And we build a new platform that have to integrate and work seamlessly with those legacy systems. And it is challenging. It is like peeling the onions. So the more you work on that, the more problem you discover. So it is actually very hard to solve. And the sole fact that we can be aware about that and prepare and allocate the buffering enough resource for the unexpected problems, that alone can go very long way and is a huge step forward in helping us control that risk a little better. So the key takeaway on risk management is that there are some complicated or a showstopper risk that could derail the project, and some of them are very hard to notice or very easy to overlook. The third-party integration could be out of control, and the legacy systems can be also like a landmine. It's very hard to manage that risk. And the technical solution we choose may be good for now, but may not be enough to anticipate the future needs. And the suggestion we find is that we should be really aggressive in identify major risks really early and tackle them the moment they arise. The earlier we handle that, the better chance we can lead the project to success. And the mindset of thinking from the future backwards is very important when we plan for the technology roadmap. So that is our takeaways, and the obstacle we see is very popular that can derail the technology projects, and how the approach we use to mitigate those obstacles. Let me shift gear and talk with you about the digital marketing. So at CBI, we are known for very aggressive growth we drive for the e-commerce brands we are working with. Usually the minimum goal we aim at is to double the revenue within 12 months. So if we can maintain that pace, double the revenue in every 12 months, we can achieve significant growth in a long period of time. And we get to that goal by using a very simple approach. If we can get 10% month-over-month growth, just 10% consistently, we will at least double the revenue within 12 months. And I'm talking about the online revenue. So in order to achieve that kind of growth, the 10% consistent month-over-month growth, we use paid advertising as the main drivers. So I will share with you the story. We work with the brand called Hermes. So Hermes is a luxury handbag brand that are growing very fast. In 2020, they almost tripled their revenue, and in 2021, we're on track of double the revenue again. We actually took this brand in January this year after a pretty disappointing Q4 last year for them. And, within using the same approach I just shared about, in September this year, we achieved the monthly revenue more than 3 times higher than the revenue we get in January. And if you look at the growth chart here, you will see that the month-over-month growth is very consistent, except for May, when they have a very big markdown sales. And that usually one of the two biggest month revenue they have in a year. And even for May, we achieved very high revenue compared to last year. So how do we do that? It is actually the way we balance between prospecting new customers and retargeting existing customers for revenue. So in e-commerce, this ratio is very important. The formula we use is that we usually use 75% of the ad spend on prospecting purely the new customers and 25% of the spend for retargeting existing customers. That way, we always ensure that we have enormous new customer going into the funnel that we will convert them into sales sooner or later. If not via paid advertising, retargeting existing customers, we will convert them via organic channels like email, SMS, or organic SEO. So we manage the overall performance by maintaining a concept called the blend return on advertising spend, which is the total site-wide revenue divided by the total ad spend. As long as the blended ROAS is healthy and above break-even, we are good to scale as fast as we can. So that approach allows us to produce consistent growth, not only with Hamid, but also with other clients like Chan Liu, which is a prestigious designer jewelry brand based in LA. Last year, 2020, we doubled the sales for Chan Liu versus 2019 using the two drivers, the Facebook prospecting and Google Smart Shopping, which are the two channels that can drive not only new customers, but those new customers that have very strong purchase intent. Or for AS98, which is one of the brand belong to Ms. Rose that I shared earlier, they also double the e-commerce revenue between 2020 versus 2019. And also you can see that Facebook advertising, the prospecting is a key growth driver with very significant growth compared to the previous year. The approach we take, beside the formula we shared earlier, about 10% month-over-month growth to double the sales every year and also maintain a healthy blended ROAS, which is on average between 3.5 to 4 to 1. That's how the ratio of the blended return on advertising spend we maintain. It may vary, depend on the brands, but that is a benchmark. We are focused on the strategies that balance acquiring new customers and generate top-line sales while optimizing for optimal cost per order and healthy return on advertising spend. And we also rely on our deep understanding of the AI algorithms of Google and Facebook, together with our own proprietary AI machine learning algorithm that we develop in-house. So we deeply understand how machine learning works, so we can leverage the AI algorithm of Google and Facebook and our own algorithm to deliver the best return for us. So that algorithm understanding is a true leverage in getting good results. The last piece I want to share with you today is, in order to grow online sales, we can do paid advertising or we can do search engine optimization, which is an art of optimizing our website or platform to drive significant traffic and revenue via Google organic search. And our SEO approach is work best with enterprise platform. We usually do SEO for platforms that have between 1 million to 30 million visitors a month with a few 100,000 of pages of content. And the bigger the platform, the better the approach we take works. So to give you an example, before I go back to the key concept and approach that we use, we do SEO for a marketplace that have $100 million in sales, 1 million SKUs across 300 niches. is very large, a marketplace with 2 million pages of content. And we took them over about 3 years ago when they are going through about 18 months of decline. And we know that SEO, because it is free, there is no paid advertising spend there. It's just organic, it's free. We know that it is the most cost-effective way to turn around the platform by investing into SEO. So we optimize the platform, and within 8 months, we grow the organic traffic from around 400,000 visitors a month to over 1.4 million visitors a month. Is over 3 times traffic growth in 8 months. And beside that, we also build out a content platform and optimize the content platform. We build out a content creation strategy that produce 250 pieces of content every week, consistently for a year. And with that effort, we grow the organic traffic for that content platform from 25,000 visitors a month to over 4 million visitors a month. Now, let me go back to the tactic we use to drive that kind of growth. So the first is that we focus on the search experience optimization. So we align from the search intent of the user by the queries they type on the Google search, to the way our listing rank on the search result on Google, to the landing page when they click on the result to go to the landing page, to the call to action, the conversion action we want them to take. If we can align that experience as a seamless experience, we not only can grow the traffic, get better rankings, but we can also increase the conversion from organic search. And for larger platforms, the impact of technical SEO is huge. So technical SEO is about optimizing the platform for the Google bots to crawl, index, and render our content. And we do that for enterprise platform. It is very important to optimize the platform architecture, the site architecture, and also how to launch it for multi-country global SEO. Those kind of ranking factors is very, very important with technical SEO. I mentioned earlier about the intensive content SEO strategy. We talk about the content velocity, how many pieces of content we create consistently. And you can see that when we have the right content strategy following an SEO guideline, there is a huge gain we can get with that SEO content approach. And the last bit, there is one thing we do not do in SEO. We do not do link building. Instead, we use our off-page SEO approach by leveraging all other digital channels like email, SMS, like affiliates, like paid advertising, like PR, like influencers. We leverage all the channels to support SEO instead of building links. And that approach is a lot more healthy and make the site and the SEO less vulnerable to the Google algorithm changes. So a few clients we work with beside the marketplace, we work with Fresh.com from LVMH, and we help Fresh launch a global SEO strategy. We launch in 7 countries at the same time, and we make sure that the user in each country, when they search, they get to the right version of the site in that country, which actually did not happen before we took over. Before, no matter which country you were on, when you search, you get to the homepage in the US. So that is about the tactic to optimize the global SEO for multi-country launch. And we also work with Beam Suntory's The Cocktail Project, which is a platform that have a lot of cocktail recipes. And the interesting part of this project is that we not only optimize for the rankings, we optimize for position 0, which is we optimize for the recipe quick snippets on Google. And we get the ranking. Google shows the recipe snippets on position 0 even higher than the #1 search rankings. And by doing that, when we head to that kind of ranking on position 0, as you see in the screenshot here, 80% of the search traffic to the Cocktail Project come from the recipe quick snippets. So with that, I share with you our lesson learned on launching technical projects, on the obstacles and the approach we use to mitigate those challenges, and share with you how we grow the online revenue with paid advertising and search engine optimization using simple formula. It's simple formula, but in order to achieve that, it takes a lot of work, which is focus on the month-over-month growth. If we can achieve 10% month-over-month growth consistently, we can at least double the revenue within 12 months. And the way to do that is make sure that we allocate adequate ad spends and resource on acquiring new customers, as well as capitalizing on our existing customer base in a way that is healthy for business. And with that, I finish my presentation and I welcome you on our Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Okay, I have some questions. One is from Q&A. Should CEO take the lead talking to CBI Digital rather than delegate to Chief Technology Officer or Chief Information Officer or IT Technology Manager, etc., to make a successful transformation? How about this one?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I would say when I talk with the clients, actually, we talk with both the CEO and the CIO or the Chief Marketing Officer, depend on the projects and also depend on the clients. Overall, the discussion with the CEO will be very high level, where we learn about the key business objective, the big picture, and the vision that usually come from the CEO. However, when we come down to the execution plan, the milestone, the timeline, the resources, it's always good to talk with the CIO or the CTO on the technology projects, because then we get down to very practical details of on the tactical approach that need to be done to implement the project. And on the marketing side, yes, we talk with the CMO, also with the head of digital or the digital managers to discuss the details. So usually the conversation can be escalate or de-escalate, depend on the goal and the objectives. So we have a conversation with the clients, and it also depends on if the clients are enterprise client, like the hospital group, or some clients like enterprise clients, it's more likely that we talk with the CMO or the CIO, CTO, or the head of digital transformation. And with the clients that is like small and medium-sized business, we will usually talk directly with the CEO.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, another
Thank
question.
Yep.
You mentioned iOS 14 changes.
Yep.
Can you share a little more about what changed or how we can adapt?
So thank you for the question. And actually, the iOS 14 is a very interesting factor. It creates a massive change in the digital marketing community. So to give you all a background is that earlier this year, Apple released an upgrade iOS 14 to the iPhones that have much stricter privacy rules that block a lot of the retargeting capability of advertising platform like Facebook. So since the release started back in February this year, but we see the biggest impact by within like May and June this year. What happened is that in Facebook advertising dashboard, we see the revenues and sales dropping a lot, and the performance is much lower than it was before. Now, but in the midst of this chaos lies a huge opportunity for the brands we work with. Actually, June and July and August are the months that we achieve the biggest growth. The reason is because we discover that
うん、
The real impact of iOS 14 is mostly on the reporting mechanism. It's not really impact the campaign performance.
うん、
So when Facebook report lower performance, it is not because Facebook underperformed than before. It still generate a lot of sales, but
うん、
Facebook dashboard can no longer show the sales in the report. So the report is Facebook actually under-report the actual sales that is generated. We discover that when we analyze the Google Analytics sales result from Facebook, and we see that why Facebook sales data drop in the dashboard, but Google Analytics shows that Facebook still driving good revenue. It's not
うん、
dropped that much at all. So by doing that, we take a big leap of faith. We actually increase the spend on Facebook a lot while everybody else scaling it down.
うん、
So at that time, we see a very big growth
うん、
in the site-wide revenue. So we cannot actually prove the concept that Facebook channel drive more revenue, but we see the big growth on the site-wide revenue. And when we minus by the healthy total revenue versus total spend, it worked out very well for our clients. And we achieved significant growth with the iOS 14. And that playbook we apply to all the brands we work with great results.
Okay, thank you very much. Another one. On the development side, one of the risks you talked about was legacy system. Can you provide any example of that risk?
Thank you. So I can share
うん、
one example about
そ
integrating with a legacy system.
う。うん、
So we 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 took a project building out a mobile app for a fitness subscription
うん、
platform.
うん、
They have tens of thousands members, and they streamline. They do the video streaming for all the fitness exercise.
うん、
Now, building out the mobile apps is straightforward, but the real risk of that project was the app need to integrate with the cloud-based platform, which they built out many years ago
うん、
via the APIs, so that the app can communicate with the online memberships and deliver the video experience. So we have to communicate that with that online platform that is really built out long time ago with a lot of customization with no documentation. So there's no documentation about how the platform was customized before, and it was built out many years ago. Now it proven to be a very big challenge because the more we build out the platform, the more we realize that there are new problems keep arising just because we do not understand the legacy system without the documentation on that one. And it is a kind of challenge, as I said earlier, very hard to manage because we actually have no control of the situation. We have to work with that portal anyway. So when we know and aware about that challenge, the key fact is that we have to buffer significant resource and time for that specific integration because we know it can easily go triple or quadruple the effort we initially planned if the platform was straightforward. So if it is a modern platform, it may take a month. If that is that kind of legacy system, we may need to prepare 3 months for that project. And we will do that in parallel with other tasks so we do not slow things down. But it is important to aware about that risk very early on and manage it.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Mada-san and everybody.
yeah, thank you. Okay, I
Thank
will
you for
switch
the.
to Japanese. では、終了時間も迫ってまいりましたので、閉会に移りたいと思います。本当にマイク、どうもありがとうございました。Thank you very much for Mike. CBI デジタル、JCC および日本クラブ共催のウェビナーをこれにて終了したいと思います。本日のご参加の皆さん、ご視聴いただき本当にありがとうございます。本日ご説明いただいた資料の請求先とか、講師の連絡先についても、参加者の皆さんに送信予定のメールに記載しておりますので、 ぜひ、コンタクトをしていただければと思います。また、こういうの、今日の動画につきましても、ちょっと編集の時間をいただきますが、準備ができ次第、プラットフォームにお載せして見てもらえるようにいたします。最後に簡単なアンケートを用意してありますので、こちらにもご協力をお願いいたします。Zoom を出るときにお願いいたします。それではどうも本当にありがとうございました。引き続き皆さん安全にお過ごしください。それでは失礼いたします。どうもありがとうございました。